And I just turned around and I hauled ass out of there. I was done. I wasn't dealing with that.
The hypocrisy of the cult is one of the things that turned me away the quickest.
When I turned my headlights on, it turned and looked at us, and one of the things I remember the most were the eyes were glowing red.
I see an orb of light. It is just circling these steps like it is waiting for me.
And he begins to tell them that he saw a UFO. They're basically like, what are you talking about? That's 7 foot up on a tree, peeking around it, and that's where I saw the top of the muzzle, nose, and the eyes. As soon as I made eye contact with this thing, it felt like death.
Welcome back to Tinfoil Tales. I'm your host, Brandon Wright. Tonight we're going to be joined by my guest, Mary. Mary is a repeat guest of the show. This will be the second time she's been on here. Talked to her last year around Halloween about a hellhound experience she had. But tonight we're going to talk a little bit more about the weird paranormal activity that's been happening to her throughout her life, with a lot of it here more recently. Before we bring Mary on, if you ever had an experience and you would like to be on an episode of Tinfoil Tales, there's a couple things you can do. You can either send an email to tinfoiltalespodcast@gmail.com, or you can go to tinfoiltales.com and go to the contact section. But either way, we'll get a message to me and we will make sure to get something scheduled for a future episode. If you would like to help Tinfoil Tales out, you can share it around wherever you listen to it. You can also help by leaving a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to Tinfoil Tales. Just make sure to continue to do that, and it'll help out with finding potential new guests, which means more episodes coming your way. You can also help by becoming a member of the Patreon. There is a free membership and a paid membership. The paid membership's only $1.99 a month, but you get access to all the episodes ad-free. You get early access to all the episodes right after they're recorded and edited. I post them up on Patreon first before they're released publicly. So you could be listening to new episodes every week for stuff that's about 2 months out before that gets released publicly. For more information about the Patreon, make sure to check out the show notes. Make sure to follow me around on social media. But I think now we're going to go ahead and bring Mary on and dive on into the conversation. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. I'd like to take this time to welcome my guest tonight, Mary. Thanks for coming back on the show and talking with me again.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
You kind of connected with me last year over a hellhound experience on an episode that I had done for Vic Cunda for his Dogman Halloween special. But on this one, you said you had some other paranormal stuff you'd like to talk about.
Yeah.
Before we dive into that, though, if you want to let the audience know a little bit about yourself before we dive into all the creepy stuff.
Oh, where do I start on that one?
Because it doesn't have to be too in-depth, just a little bit of who you are and where you're from, and we can go on into it.
Oh, name's Mary. I'm from Ohio, Delaware originally, but moved to Ohio. And I've had paranormal activity follow me since I was 4 years old.
There just seems to be a time frame of when children start to notice it, and especially at the younger ages, is always tough. But when people get older, they start to wonder if they're really actually seeing the things, and you start to think back on it, and you realize there's a whole lot of stuff that you could have been experiencing, and everyone else just kind of wrote it off as make-believe. But
Right.
yeah, if you want to start from wherever you feel like starting with, you can go ahead and take on over.
Well, okay, the thing with my family, though, is the women in my family and my brothers have this, I guess you could call it a gift, because we can sense things.
Mm-hmm.
So, and my first memory is I was 4 years old. We were living in Oxford, PA. It was just me, my mom, and my dad at the time, but my dad was at work. we were waiting for the telephone to get hooked up. And my mom had the telephone cord wrapped around the telephone, sitting on top of the fridge, waiting for the technician to come out. Well, the phone starts ringing. My mom, not thinking, reaches up, grabs the phone, unwraps the cord, answers it, talks for a few minutes, and I'm just standing in the doorway staring at her. She hangs up the phone, wraps everything back up, puts it back on the fridge, looks at me, looks at the wall, looks at the fridge, grabs me, runs me to the next door neighbor's house, and tells them that she has to call the gas company now. She was about to turn on the oven to cook dinner, and when the phone rang, well, the voice on the other end of the phone told her that we had a gas leak to get me out of the house. If she would have ignored it and turned on the oven, the house would have blown up.
It's crazy. That's I don't know what you would do, like guardian to an extent, like giving you a premonition warning of some bad stuff about to happen. But
Right. That's how I take it. But since then, other things have happened. Like a few years later, my brothers and sister had come along and they were like real young. I'm the oldest. And we moved to, Newcastle, Delaware, I think. Yeah, I think it was Newcastle. And the place isn't that important, but the house was full, absolutely full of shadow people because I would see them all hours of the day, night, just shadows darting everywhere.
were they
And
full
I
on, like,
think,
not to interrupt, were they like full on shadow people, or were they just more like shadows, or could you actually see like details to them?
no, they were like full on shadow people because you could see like outlines of people and they were darker than dark. If we had all the lights out, you could still see the outline of the people.
Okay.
And they were like all over the place, especially down in the basement, which I don't like basements to begin with. But that's where our family room was. So that's where, I would play most of the time. Either that or up in my bedroom. And it was always like out of the corner of your eye, you would see something moving and you'd look and nothing was there. It would be just like a blank wall. And in the basement, we didn't have windows, so it couldn't have been any light reflections or anything. And I brushed it off. I thought it was normal at that point. Well, talking to my mom here recently, she saw them too. She didn't say anything because she didn't want to scare us kids.
A lot of parents don't want to say things because they don't want their kids to be afraid. I get that. I would be the same way.
But I remember one night I was laying in bed and I don't know if it was like a sleep paralysis thing or what, but my mom was talking to me. She's like, get up, come here. I need you. I'm like, well, what do you need? And she's like, I need you. Come here. So I got out of bed, went to my mom's room, woke my mom up to ask her what she wanted. And she's like, I didn't say anything. I was sleeping. I'm so like, no, you were just in my room. You told me to come here. What do you need? And she's like, you were having a nightmare. Go back to bed. And I'm so like, no, I saw you in my room. What do you need? And she's like, you were having a nightmare. Just go back to bed. But the one that really, I mean, there's been so much that's happened to me. We moved to another house, and there was more shadow people. But by this point, I could pretty much block them out when I wanted to. So, I mean, they never really bothered me. Then at 10, I had to move to Ohio to be raised by my grandparents. Their house was fine during the day. Absolutely fine during the day. At night, every single night, I'd hear something hitting the fence outside my window. Reminds my grandfather. So I'm like, same time every night, something hits the fence and it wakes me up. He's like, oh, that's just a deer jumping over the fence. I'm like, at first, I'm like, oh, okay. Thought nothing of it. Would go back to bed. Then I had a dream that the walls were covered in blood. Got up next morning, went to my grandmother. I'm like, did anything happen on this property? She's like, no. Why do you say that? Told her about my dream. She's like, well, you watch too many horror movies. I'm like, well, okay, but that doesn't explain my dream. And she's like, just forget about it. Nothing's happened here. You've got an overactive imagination. Years later, both grandparents die. My mom takes over the house. We're going through my grandfather's things, and we found a news article where there was a double murder on the property. The woman was found out where our septic system started, because that was the front porch of the house that was there. And the man was found slumped over the fence outside my bedroom window, where I heard the noises every night. The cops didn't even like coming down to our property.
Creeped out by it too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's strange.
And the house that was there, all they did was bulldoze it into the basement, and then my grandparents put their house on top of it. Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Thanks, Mark. My brother sitting beside me, he just informed me that every Halloween we would hear the shotgun go off that killed the two people.
That's weird. There's I don't want to go in too far into your story or whatever with it, but there was a area not too far from here that my friend had moved into with another friend, and a neighbor had apparently used a shotgun on themselves out in their barn, and then on the other side of them, not long after that, the other neighbor did the same thing.
Oh.
So within a very short time frame, both neighbors did the same exact thing to themselves. So it's kind of makes you wonder if the grounds themselves are not holding some sort of weird evil karma. I don't know what you would call it, but like some sort of weird energy that would be haunting the thing to make people commit the same things.
Right. Well, in the same house that I was just talking about after my grandparents died, I had seen my grandparents. My grandmother was sitting in the chair she always sat in, and my grandfather was sitting at the dining room table, got up, went into the kitchen, disappeared. But that was like right after they had passed. My mom decided to paint the living room because we got tired of the dark brown paneling. In the middle of January, we're painting the living room white. And we had the windows open to air out the fumes. And we had flies covering the windows. We'd be listening to one radio station. All of a sudden, the radio would switch over to country and just turn all the way up. And we turned it back to the station we were listening to and turn it down a little. A few minutes later, right back to country, all the way up. And I'm like, I looked at my mom. I'm like, all right, Grandpa, we get it. You don't paint over paneling, but you're not here anymore. Knock it off. The radio shut off, would not turn back on the rest of the day.
Made them mad.
Yeah. Because my grandfather, you did not paint over paneling. And that's exactly what we were doing.
Do you believe that, why would, in your opinion, why would they still be around? If, like, with the afterlife and everything, why would they still be haunting the same place when they have not moved on? Do you think there's like some sort of reason they were still hanging around the area?
I don't know, because that was like the last time that I felt my grandfather at that house. So I think that was his way of saying, all right, you do what you want. I'm done. I'm out. Because I didn't feel him anymore there.
Did you ever, with your grandmother or anything, did you ever feel like her presence was ever still around?
Yeah, because my middle daughter, when she was 2 years old, I have a picture of me when I was 10 with my grandmother and grandfather. Well, at the time, I had it hanging over my couch. And my daughter comes downstairs and she's like, Mom, where's my dog? I'm like, honey, we don't have a dog. And she's like, where's Toby? Where's my dog, Toby? I'm like, honey, we don't have a dog named Toby. And she looks up at the picture, points at my grandmother, and she's like, that's me. I'm Dot. Where's Toby? My grandmother's name was Dorothy. Everybody called her Dot. She had a poodle named Toby. Never mentioned any of this to my 2-year-old.
It's definitely creepy.
Yeah.
Off topic, but kind of related. I used to have a dog named Toby. He was a Doberman.
Right. My grandmother's was like a miniature poodle.
So we had a Doberman when I was a kid, and he only lived to be about 3. For some reason, we don't know what if he ate like a rat or something. Like maybe got the poison, but like he went out. My dad went out to check on him to feed him one day, and he didn't look good. It looked like he'd been sick, and then he went to call the vet. But when he went to go pick him back up, take him to the vet, he'd already died.
Oh no.
So we don't know what he was fine one day and dead the next morning. But that was the tragedy of Toby.
Right. But back to you mentioning about possible things being on the property.
Mm-hmm.
I fully believe that because there was a shed. Well, it wasn't even a shed. It was more of a shack. Like, not even a 1-bedroom house. It was like you walked into the entranceway, into the living room, bedroom, kitchen combination, and then you had a bathroom. But it was on the neighbor's plot of land that the neighbor would allow my grandfather to use as a shed. Anytime he had to go in there, I hated going in there with him because I felt like I was being watched. And years later, it was me, my brother, my sister, my sister's best friends, all sitting outside around camp or bonfire. And we see the shadow thing peeking around one of the trees. The Hat Man is what everybody calls it. Because, I mean, it was like a guy full on shadow, wearing a trench coat and a hat. And we all put out the fire, ran inside. Took us 3 days to get up enough courage to go back outside at night to see if we could see it again. Well, we did. We took off inside. I went outside the next day with my brother, and we see the shadow pacing back and forth in the shack. And we're like, nope, we're done. You stay on that side of the property. We'll stay over here. You don't bother us. We won't bother you. We'll be good.
I feel like with Hatman stuff, it's very strange because a lot of people report the same exact thing. So it makes you wonder if everyone's seeing the same entity, which is strange in itself because how could it be in so many different places all over the world? Why are they seeing something described as the same thing, the Hat Man? Like, what are Hat Man? I've had a couple different episodes about them, but like, it's almost like when you hear people talk about death, like the Grim Reaper, like they're always the same sort of descriptions, but like now you have this new one here that's called Hat Man, and he's always got a hat, and he's almost got like a shape of a coat or a trench coat or something on. Like, it's very strange how similar a lot of these sightings and experiences are.
Right. Well, my ex, we were talking about it one day, and the minute I mentioned that aspect, he's like, oh, a djinn. He's like, that's exactly what it is. It's a djinn. He's like, was the place like dirty and cluttered? I'm like, well, yeah. He's like, they're attracted to it.
There could be some sort of reason that they are attracted to a certain area, but when I hear djinn, for some reason, I always think of like genies. I don't know if that's the correct analogy for them, but for some reason, that's why I always kind of relate that to, is like you sometimes hear about jinn and they're like tricksters or whatever, but a lot of them are like almost like the versions of genies.
Right.
I think there's a lot of strange phenomena that happens, and there's been some episodes that we've talked about before, almost like some old trickster god type things. And I wonder if a lot of the strange things that people encounter aren't something connected to that type of lore. Like, it might not be exactly what we think it is, but maybe they manifest themselves into some of these descriptions, like visuals that we see or whatever. That's the way they take shape, because that's how they are in our world. Like, that is the shape for them in our world that we know them as.
Right.
But
that makes sense.
But whatever they actually are, I have no idea. Like, to me, I'm just spitballing here, but I've often wondered I've often wondered if, like I said many times, I think a lot of things are connected. So I think a lot of the stuff has some sort of origin to them, and I just don't know how to explain it better than that.
Right.
Has there been anything that's happened like more recently to you?
Yeah, the house I'm living in now has shadow people.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'll be in my mom's room talking to her, and my brother will be in the living room, and we will see like somebody walking in the hallway outside of my mom's room. Well, we'll get done talking. I'll come back out in the living room, and I'll ask my brother if he was just in the hallway for anything. And he'd be like, no, why? And I'll explain to him, and he's like, oh, okay. And they like to move things.
That's very poltergeistish.
My aunt, a few months ago, had to go into the hospital, and she's now in a nursing home. Well, when we went to go visit her, my mom asked her where her cell phone was, and she didn't know. Her cell phone went missing. That she had to go into the hospital. Yesterday, my mom was switching out purses, found my aunt's cell phone in the lining of her purse that had no holes in it for the cell phone to get into the lining of the purse. And she also found my aunt's medical alert bracelet in the lining of the purse. My mom had to cut a hole to get the stuff out. And it wasn't there before.
How would it even get in there? Like, and just in general, like if you had to cut it to get it out, like how does it make it manifest itself in there?
Right? But because I've held my aunt's purse,
Mm-hmm.
there was nothing in the lining. And then my mom went to go switch out purses and she's like, what is in here? She emptied out the purse, still felt something hard in the lining of it, and had to cut the lining to get. And that's when she found the cell phone that's been missing for months.
It's very, very odd. Like I said, I'm trying to wrap my brain around how it could possibly get in between the linings if it was stitched together without done intentionally. But
Right.
odd. I'll just leave it at that.
But that's the type of stuff that happens to me all the time.
Might sound like a
Well,
strange question, but like, do you believe the areas are haunted, or do you just believe things are not so much you're haunted, but like things are more prone to like you attract them?
yeah, I definitely believe I attract them.
I feel like some people have that ability, and I don't know if it's an ability or some people call it a curse, but you hear people
Oh,
say that like mediums have a way of communicating, psychics have a way of communicating with the other sides or whatever. I believe a lot of people probably can actually tap into that, but I think some are more able to do it than others just because of I don't know why. But
well, as I said, it runs in my family.
hmm and maybe because you're able to tap into that, you're more like you're more prone to it, but because you're able to do it and tap into it, it just draws more and more to them because they understand that you can see them or you can communicate with them or you can have some sort of interaction with them.
Right. Well, I feel I'm more of an empath because if when I get to know someone, if there's something wrong with them, I can tell. Doesn't matter if I haven't spoken to the person in years, I can tell when something's wrong with them.
You have a way to tap into someone's emotional state.
Yeah. I would freak my friends out in high school all the time because I would talk to them like all the time in school and at home on the phone and whatnot. And I would get dreams where I would meet people or be places before I was actually there. Because before I went over to one of my friends' houses, we were talking about something. I don't remember what now because, as I said, it was back in high school. And we were setting up a sleepover later for like, the following week or whatever. And I stopped her mid conversation. I'm like, you're wearing this, this, and this. You're sitting on a pink beanbag chair in your family room. And I like described the whole layout of her house, and I never stepped foot in the house. And she's like, how do you know this? I'm like, because I had a dream about this a month ago.
I wonder if when people have these dreams or whatever, is it actually a dream or is it just, I don't want to say time slips, but like maybe they are how things, I feel like there's different realities. Like, I don't want to say multiverse because it gets overblown, but basically the same,
Right.
the concept is similar. Like maybe things are happening in all different realities and our dreams when we leave our consciousness, maybe our dreams are what's happening in other realities. So you've already seen it because it's already happened somewhere else.
Right. That's a possibility. I never thought of it like that.
It's not so much people seeing the future, it's seeing what's already happened somewhere else.
Right.
I don't know. I think about a lot of things, but I have no proof of anything I ever think about. Well,
Right.
has there been anything else like you've mentioned the shadow people and everything? Have you tried to do any sort of actual communicating with any of these things, or do you not try and rock that boat?
Not yet.
What about your other family members in the house? Have they had any sort of other interactions with these things?
Well, my brother's sitting right next to me. Would you like to speak to him?
If he would like to talk, I'm More than happy to.
Well,
Introduce yourself.
hello. I'm Mark, Mary's younger brother.
How you doing?
I'm pretty good.
You had any of these run-ins with these shadow figures?
Yeah, actually, yeah. A couple months ago, before my sister had moved in, my mom would be asleep, and they love mimicking voices too.
It definitely
I know.
that
Yeah, I
sounds
knew my mom was asleep and everything, and she swore up and down that I woke her up calling to her. No, you were asleep. I wouldn't wake you.
it sounds very I don't want to say trickster, but that's the only thing I keep thinking of is tricksterish because I've talked with someone prior and this happened to me last year. I don't like I don't know how to describe it other than I walked through my kitchen and I heard my daughter say something to me and she was doing her homework and I looked back and she swore she didn't say anything to me, but I heard her voice.
Yeah, my mom will swear that I say something, or I swear that she's calling out to me or knocking on the wall, and she's not doing any of that.
Again, it kind of goes back to what I was just talking with Mary about. I was like, I don't want to say time slips or anything like with dreams or something, but I wonder if sometimes our different realities kind of bleed into ours and some of these things that we're communicating with, some of these things that we're seeing, maybe they're just other versions of us on a
Yeah,
different time.
different, like a different timeline, different reality,
Right.
parallel to ours.
Right. And maybe,
A form of astral projection into that.
right. Yeah. Basically, like when we go to sleep and our mind goes off to in dream world, which they claim is in our mind, but who's to say that we're not actually traveling? Our dreams are us actually experiencing these things elsewhere. And then we come back
Yeah,
to our reality. So maybe the things that we're seeing now or communicating with or interacting with is our own selves from a different plane of existence.
I have the one that likes to mimic mom's voice, my voice, knock on the wall, and all that. Yeah,
When it comes to
and
things mimicking and making noises and everything, it's really trying to get your attention for some reason. And
yeah,
I don't feel like those are usually very good.
it's like something like that happened to me. My mom just look up and go, "All right, knock it off. We hear you. And just leave us alone." But I'll end up seeing like right out of the corner of my eye a shadow go by, or like Mary was saying, Mom will end up seeing a shadow walk back and forth and ask me, "Was I just walking in the hallway? I went to the bathroom and came back. If that's what you mean." No, I mean going all the way to the other bedroom. Nope, I haven't done that yet.
How does your mom feel about all this stuff? Does she open to it or is she kind of just
Yeah, she's open to it.
okay? I didn't know if she just kind of wrote it all off as nothing. A lot of older folks, I feel like, are more prone to not be accepting towards it. They just think that everything else is just
No,
crazy.
she grew up with it too, with all this too. Like Mary said, all the women plus me and my brother, we're the only males in the family, are sensitive to it and realize it. Our little sister has started to ignore it and suppress all of it.
Say she doesn't even believe
So
it.
yeah, she doesn't believe it anymore. And if you bring it up, she goes, "No, that never happened."
Even though her half of it, she was there.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Where me, I try to amplify it a little bit by doing like small forms of meditation. Yeah, I try to amplify my ability. I try to understand it a little better.
Right.
Right?
Well, my fair share of I'm not an expert in anything, but just from my share of talking with people or whatever, sometimes when we amplify things, we actually kind of like I was telling Mary, it draws more stuff in. So because if you're able to communicate with it, maybe there's a lot of things out there that want you to communicate with it, and maybe not everything that we communicate with, we should be communicating with. If that makes sense. I think
Yeah.
there's a lot
No,
of negative energy
it's
out
not that
there.
I was doing it to communicate with them. It's just so I wouldn't lose the ability as a
Yeah.
lot of the males in the family end up doing once they hit a certain age.
Yeah, I understand what you're meaning. I'm just saying, like, I think when we get into some of these weird things, we start having these abilities, or we're able to start communicating, or we start seeing these things, and a lot of people will say, "Oh, you guys are crazy," but when a lot of the weird stuff happens and you're able to see it and communicate with it, I think you're more prone to it. And again, I don't know if the outside energies are more prone to come to the people that are able to understand it or communicate with it. So they want to be communicated with, or the ones that are out there know that you can communicate and they want to come in here because they need to be fed. And by fed, I basically mean like feed off of our energy.
Yeah.
So I
Oh
think
yeah,
that's what a lot.
I know when I'm being fed off of, because I'll be fine if I'm outside. The minute I step into the house, I feel completely drained and all I want to do is sleep.
The very heaviness hits you.
Yeah.
Have you ever considered having someone come out to the house to maybe cleanse it? Or have you ever tried anything like that to try and get rid of whatever could possibly be around the area?
He wants to be a sage, and that just makes him angry.
Not yet. I am talking to somebody who would be willing to come into the house to try to figure out what's here and what exactly they want. And if we can help them move on, great. If not, just leave us alone.
I often wonder, though, if some of the things we're saying move on are not even able to move on, because I don't know if they're necessarily human spirits.
Right.
I think a lot of stuff that people
That's
like
what I want to find out.
is kind of what they are. A lot of people throw out
Yeah.
the D word, demons, a lot, and I don't necessarily go that route, but I think there's a lot of negative energies out there, and they all go by different names.
Right.
So if you guys are prone to things and open towards things, maybe they sense that, and that's why they're there, because maybe your energies are more of a higher, I don't want to say a higher quality food source, but at the same time, I don't know how else to say it without saying that. So maybe they just
A higher quality food source. Exactly.
so they come to feed off that energy a little bit more than the average person, maybe.
What was it? Somebody we knew came over to visit us and saw it happen, and they were like, "Well, why don't you just use a Ouija?" Immediately,
No.
me, my mom, and my sister went, "Nope, not happening."
I don't recommend anyone to do that. I've never messed with one. I'm superstitious as it is, and other people say I'm dumb because it's just a board game and it's not real. It's like, you know what?
I moved out of the house because I found one. I'm like, no.
There's no sense trying to push that any further. Like the notion of it to me is like, I'm not the one that's ever going to mess with a Ouija board. I was actually looking at stuff today because I have some events coming up and I wanted to have some stuff for my booth. And I seen some fake Ouija board stuff. I was like, I guess I could do something like that because it kind of fits. I was like, but no, I was like, I don't even want even the fake looking stuff. Like, I'm not even messing with any of that crap.
Right. No. Because I had a friend in high school that had found a Ouija board in her attic, was playing with it, ended up coming over to my house at like 4:00 in the morning, begging to sneak her in to, so she could get some sleep before school. Because after she got done playing with it, she heard like banging and knocking and all this stuff up in the attic where the Ouija board was. And she was home by herself. She was terrified. She tried burning it. She tried getting rid of it. It kept showing up.
Yeah, I don't even.
Yeah, they say the best way to get rid of a Ouija board is to drown it.
Yeah.
My kids last fall decided that they were going to have some friends over and they tried to make a makeshift one. So I went downstairs and freaked out on all of them.
Right.
And one of those friends have never came back. They probably went home and told their parents that the crazy dad was screaming about demons and all sorts of stuff, so they don't want to come back over here. But no, that I was like, if anyone that knows me at this point, after a couple of years of doing this podcast, they let their kids come over. They probably should understand that I'm very superstitious anymore, and I'm the oddball, I guess, because of the things I talk about and the things that I do.
You're completely normal. Everybody else is the weirdo.
Well, I would rather be considered the weirdo just because then I don't feel so mundane like everybody else.
Well, as I tell everybody that they're like, well, you're not normal. I'm like, I never claimed to be fully sane.
I don't know what normal is.
Right?
I look around the world. I look at the echo chamber of social medias and everything I see is like, if this is normal, I'm glad I'm not normal.
Exactly.
But
My best friend growing up looked at me and goes, "You're not normal." And your point being is what?
yeah,
Normal's boring.
it's okay to be different. Anyone out there listening, it's okay to be a little bit different. And if you consider yourself a normie, that's cool too. But I like to be unique, or at least think I am my own individual. Well, guys, we can probably wrap this one up if there's nothing else that's been going on lately that you want to discuss. But if there is, we can still keep going.
Well, I think we pretty much covered everything.
If anything picks up and you end up having anyone come out and find out more information about what you could be possibly dealing with, make sure to reach out to me and I'll try and do a little bit of an update for people before this comes out, if it's anytime soon, because this probably won't come out for a few weeks.
Okay.
But, well, I appreciate you guys coming on here tonight and talking with me. I know it was kind of a last minute thing because I had another guest that had to reschedule, but I definitely appreciate you guys coming on here and talking.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yep, not a problem.
That's a good part of it.
Yeah, thanks for hopping on here too. Appreciate that.
Well, he's home more than I am because I work, so.
So he deals with more of the weird stuff.
Yeah, my mom's house, yeah.
All right, guys. Well,
I'm going to be here to help her out.
Yeah.
All
right.
You guys have a good night. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. You too.
Good night.
Good night.
And that's the show, everyone. I really hope you guys enjoyed the conversations. If you would like to be a guest on Tinfoil Tales, remember to send an email to tinfoiltalespodcast@gmail.com or go to the contact section of tinfoiltales.com. Just get your message to me. We'll get something scheduled for a future episode. And just remember, the truth lies in the stories we share, the connections we make. Stay curious, stay open-minded. Thank you all for joining us on this journey. And until next time, keep questioning, keep seeking, and keep exploring the unknown. Good night, everyone.
Tinfoil Tales in the headphones. Yeah, it's time to rock. Got a story about a cryptid creature. Let's take a walk. Bigfoot, Dogman, they're out there in the dark. But the truth is out there like an alien spark. UFO sightings got the whole world shook. Conspiracies unfold like a story in a book. Media control, trying to keep us blind. But oh, before gonna use my own mind. In history, they don't want us to know the secrets they hide, the truth they won't show. Dominate our society, they keep us in chains. But I'm standing tall, it's time to break the reins. trying to keep us blind, but I won't be fooled, gonna use my own mind. In history